And right now it's time for that time when we talk to our special guest. Tonight our special guest is Bruce Lipton. Bruce is a world-famous microbiologist and author with 3 great books to his name. And he's here tonight to tell me all about his upcoming seminar on the 27th of April. It's called Thriving in a World of Change. For bookings, contact www.chiropractic.ac.nz. Bruce Lipton.
Oh.
2 handshakes.
Hands across the sea, my friend.
That's great, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
1 Kiwi guy and 1 American.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
don't say that out loud because, it's some kind of a little embarrassing to the American here at this
And
moment.
a wonderful American that has written 3 wonderful books. We'll talk about those in just a moment.
Yeah.
But it's important that all our viewers know that behind that graying temple there is a mastermind.
Wow. Let's say, put it this way, he's a happy boy.
Yes.
He's a happy boy because if you understand some of the principles of our lives and actually operate from the new science, then you start to recognize that we were really given an opportunity to come here, planet Earth, and experience heaven on earth.
Yeah.
And those people that are at this moment, if you're out there and you just fell in love with somebody and you're experiencing
That's
that
how you should be all the
honeymoon,
time.
that is a way of life that you could have the rest of your life if you understand the principles.
Now, Bruce, before we begin, when was the last time you were on the show? So about 2 or 3, 4 years ago,
At least
wasn't it?
3 years ago, I think so.
And what gave me a great thrill was I said offhandedly to my daughter one day, she's around about the 40 years old. Of course, this is a baby boomer chat show. We don't expect 40-year-olds. And I said, I had Bruce Lipton on the show. Bruce. She went into a catatonic shock and said, you did, Bruce Lipton, wow. So,
Whoa, it surprises me too.
So Bruce, your fame goes across all age groups, doesn't it? So,
Well, it's not me. It's
with
this
all these books,
material that
yeah.
I downloaded. I stole this from the universe, put my name right there at the bottom. I hope they don't charge me for plagiarizing the universe, but I took some stuff out of the universe and wrote it down.
Now, for the one person in New Zealand, Bruce, that doesn't know Bruce Lipton, just a quick rundown. You started off as a ordinary, everyday, die-in-the-wool biologist. Is that correct?
I was a conventional research scientist teaching in a medical school, teaching medical students about the nature of how genes control our lives. This is a story that almost everyone has grown up with, that the character of my life, not just the physical, but the emotional and behavioral characters are programmed in our genes. And I go, well, what I was really teaching, which is unfortunately what people are still aware of in the public, and that is genes control our lives. Genes turn on and off. We didn't pick the genes as far as we know, and if we don't like our traits, can't change the genes. And I said, well, what does that lead to?
That's the biology, isn't it?
That's the new biology, because the old biology, which most people are still caught up in, is genes control their life, they don't control their genes. And all of a sudden that means our lives are pre-programmed by genetics that we have no control over, so we're victims of our heredity. So people, oh my God, there's cancer running in my family, there's Alzheimer's, oh my God, I'm gonna get it, I got the genes.
But it doesn't have to be that way.
That's the old story.
Yep.
So as I was doing this research, I was cloning stem cells. Stem cells, people have heard of them. I was cloning stem cells in 1967, so baby boomers out there were on the streets, and I was doing some cell culturing.
This is early technology.
It was way ahead of the game, because what I was discovering in my research in cloning stem cells, listen, when I was cloning stem cells, there was a handful of people in the whole world that even knew what a stem cell was. Okay, so I had a unique opportunity, and what did I find? I found this, is that genes do not control biology. Genes have nothing to do with control. Genes are blueprints, and the idea about it is, well, we've been focusing on the blueprints, nobody's focusing on who's the contractor. Who's the one that's selecting the blueprints? And now, all of a sudden, the research that I was involved with presaged a new field called epigenetics. I say, so it sounds like the old science. So very quickly, what's the difference? Old science, genetic control simply means control by genes. So my life is under genetic control. The new science is called epigenetic control. And you go, well, it sounds like the same thing. I go, epi means above. So when I say epigenetic control, I'm saying control above the genes. And all of a sudden I say, oh my God, our consciousness, our perceptions, our beliefs
All
are all factors that control our
Yeah,
genes.
yeah.
And the moment you change your belief,
Yeah.
the moment you change your perception, you are automatically changing your genes.
Isn't that amazing? Look, there's a great saying, I am a product of my choices, not a victim of my circumstances.
That
It's the same
100%.
thing.
100%.
So let's
It's
look at that.
science now. It's
Yeah.
not just a saying.
So what you're saying is, if your genes are controlling, if your mind, your conscious, subconscious, and that is controlling your genes, you are able now to make some good choices. You are a product of your choices. That's what life's all about,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Now
Not a victim of your circumstances.
This is really critical because most people perceive themselves as victims and they go,
Yeah.
oh, woe with me. You know, it's like, I'm going to have cancer. My family's got cancer.
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
get cancer. And it's like, first of all, there's no such thing as a cancer gene. People say there's a cancer gene. I say, you show me a gene that causes cancer. And I'm going to say, you're not going to find one. There is no gene that causes cancer. And so just to give people an understanding, the big breast cancer gene is called BRCA1 gene. I go, oh yeah, that's called the breast cancer gene. And then I say, well, how many women who carry the breast cancer gene actually have breast cancer? And it's less than 50%. I go, well, wait a minute. Then 50% of the women that have the gene never get the cancer. And I go, this is the most important understanding. Having the gene does not cause the cancer. It's a lifestyle that activates the gene that causes the cancer. So you can have the gene and never get cancer, but you have to live in a more wholesome, full, happy lifestyle. It's anger and fear and stress, which will precipitate cancer. So it's like, oh, that's a choice. You want to be angry? You want to have fear? Well,
and so, you know, I can imagine a 42-year-old woman just discovered that she's got breast cancer. So she says, oh, no, I've always watched my diet and I'm a very calm person. How do you answer that?
Well, it's really important because...
But there's something else going on that we don't know about.
Yes. Let's get down to the bottom line, exactly what it is. The mind controls biology. But the process, the mind, sounds like a single mind. I go, no. There are two separate minds that work together, but each one has a different function and learns in a different way, and that's where the problems come from. So the two minds are, the original mind is called subconscious. Definition, subconscious. It operates without you even knowing it's going on. Okay. The other is called conscious. That's the more recent mind. The conscious mind is where our personal identity, our spirit, who we are as unique individuals, is conscious mind. Difference between the two minds. Subconscious mind is habit. Conscious mind is creative. I say, well, great. What are your wishes and your desires? And if I say, Gerard, what do you want? I say, well, what mind is that coming from? I say, oh, wishes, desires.
Creative mind?
Conscious mind. And I go, okay, now here's where the problem comes in. This is where you got to understand this. I'll ask you a question, and then we'll go from there. I say, Gerard, what are you doing Monday at 2 o'clock?
Don't know.
Where are you going to get the answer? You're going to go inside. Well, wait a minute. If I take my conscious mind and go inside to answer a question, by definition, it's not paying attention to what's going on the outside. So every time I'm thinking, it doesn't mean if I'm walking...
About what I'm doing at 2 o'clock, every time you're thinking about that...
a thought, that the answer is inside, then by definition, conscious is focused inside. Well, if you're walking down the street, and I say, well, your conscious stops not looking at the street, you don't stop, you just keep walking. And I say, well, you didn't hit anything. Or you're driving the car and you're thinking. I say, you didn't hit anything. I say, autopilot is subconscious. It's 40 million times more powerful than conscious as a processor. So it's like you can let go and let subconscious run everything. In fact, it does most. Okay, well, but here's the problem.
So when you go to sleep at night, your heart keeps beating and your liver keeps working and your kidneys are going.
Subconscious is taking care of all of it. But it can drive the car. It can walk. It can do a job that you've been doing. It can have conversation if your conscious mind gets busy. So here's the bottom line. 95% of the day, we're in thought. I go, well, what does that mean? I said, 95% of the day, your conscious mind doesn't have its hands on the wheel. It's not driving the vehicle. 95% of the day, the autopilot, subconscious kicks in, and it's driving the vehicle. And I say, now that's where the problem comes in, and here's why. The first 7 years of our life is download behavior. From where? Observe your mother, your father, your siblings, your community. I say, why do you need to do this? I said, if you want to become a functional member of a family, functional member of a society,
You
got to have a lot of rules. I say, but how does a kid learn it? And I say, first 7 years, the brain is in hypnosis, and it records other people's behavior. So I say, oh, so the programs in my subconscious did not come from me. I go, nope, they came from other people. I say, and they don't necessarily answer your wishes and your desires. They're programmed from other people. So then I say, the 95% of the day, you think you're running your life with wishes and desires. And I go, well, that's an illusion. Because 95% of the day you're running the program, subconscious, it's other people's behavior, and 70% or more is disempowering, self-sabotaging, limiting behaviors. So it means 95% of the day we think
we're running things.
But it turns out, no, the subconscious is running it, and subconscious, below conscious.
Yeah.
If we have negative programs, which everyone does, we play them without us seeing it. And all of a sudden it says, well, then at the end of the day, I come home and say, but I wanted to be healthy. I wanted a great relationship. I wanted a great job. And look, I got nothing. and then you say, the universe is against me. And I go.
So let's go over that, because this is fascinating. Look, while I'm sitting here talking to you,
Yes.
I believe that I'm consciously talking to you. That's the creative and the conscious mind. But 95% of the work that runs my body is taking place. I'm aware. It's running my heart, running my kidneys, running the skin.
But it's walking, driving the car,
exactly.
doing, if you're working on a computer, you don't need
so
to pay attention.
here's this 95% control of your body.
Yeah.
It's taking, and yet we all think that we're totally aware and the conscious mind is running things, but it's only 5%.
That's the problem.
So now that we know that, and it's taken years, you've been sort of talking about it, the biology, belief, spontaneous evolution. Now that we know all that, a few of our viewers will be saying, how can we improve? How can we... What's the big first steps to make sure that we begin to be aware of the subconscious mind, and we can start making improvements?
Okay. Well, this book, The Honeymoon, Honeymoon Effect, is the answer for this reason. Look at it this way. If you've ever fallen in love, head over heels in love, I could say your life was crap every day, every stinking day of your life. Yeah. Then you meet this person.
And you're in love.
And 24 hours later, it's like, oh, it's heaven on earth. My life is beautiful. I'm healthy. I'm happy.
Movies seem great. Music
Everything's
sounds
great. And I'm going, what happened in 24 hours that life went from, garbage to heaven on earth? And the answer was, we now know that the moment you fall in love is the moment you become what is called mindful, which is the moment you stop thinking and start living at the moment. I say, oh, the first day you stop playing the programs, 95% of the day, is the first day you start living heaven on earth. Mm-hmm. And the honeymoon is heaven on earth until thinking starts coming back in.
But it's that awful word honeymoon, which only lasts 3 months, doesn't it?
No, I'm on 23 years of honeymoon.
Yeah. Oh, you are, but...
I'm on 23, but I know the rules.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the whole idea was this, is that why was life so different? The answer is, it is the first time you stopped playing the programs and you started really creating from wishes and desires, and a honeymoon is an expression of wishes and desires. So the first time you stopped playing the program, you pulled out of the program. It's the equivalent of taking the red pill in the Matrix. You take the red pill, you stop playing the program, you're out. And I say, what happened? All of a sudden, then your conscious mind is running the show. And I say, yeah, wishes, desires, aspirations. And all of a sudden, guess what? Now your life is all
Bruce,
that.
I've never seen you, and I've met you many a time, I've never seen you depressed. That's your public persona. Have you ever had a couple of days where you've been a little bit down, and yet knowing all this, you've allowed yourself to get down? Has that ever happened?
Not for the last 20 years.
Not for 20 years.
No, because...
So you've got a technique that once you start feeling a little bit of woe is me,
go off to somewhere else. It's a choice. It was funny because if a psychiatrist was examining me years ago, they would say, Lipton, you're a manic depressive. Why? Because, well, a lot of times you're real happy, and then all of a sudden you go spiral, you go downhill, and everything goes wrong, and it gets worse because as it goes wrong, then it's like, I get so aggravated, and it's like everything, and the next thing goes wrong, and then then, here's where I caught myself, and this is the world change day for me. I'm in this spiral going downhill.
This is 20 years ago.
At least 20 years ago.
At least 20 years ago.
And it was like, oh my God, I just know that this is not going to get better because we're going downhill. I know this. It's experience. It's repetition. And I'm in the middle of having this argument with my subconscious, which is the critical mind. Not good enough, not deserving. Who do you think you are? Those are things that parents told us.
Which you've downloaded.
You've downloaded in the first 7 years. So I'm having this thing in my head with my subconscious, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? And my conscious going, oh, like this, right?
How did you get yourself out of it?
And this was it. All of a sudden, in the middle of this one particular time, it's like a third-party voice came in. Nobody was there. A third-party voice. I hear this voice like separate, and it says, Bruce, don't you have anything better to do than to listen to this crap? And it was like an outside voice, and I looked around, nobody was there, and then I just thought to myself, well, yeah, instead of doing this, I'd rather go see a movie. So there's a newspaper. I stopped, picked up the paper, looked at a movie, found a movie, drove to the theater, went to the movie, came out, no more depression. And then the next time I started to go down, because I laughed, because it was so like, of course, don't you have anything better to do than to listen to this? And the next time I caught it faster, and the next time I caught it faster, and then it got to a point that
you've now trained yourself.
It was a reprogramming. It's a habit. Every time a negative thing would come in, the habit would then direct me to go, hey, let go of that and go do something else. And so the significance is, now I'm totally manic. The depression part's gone. But the fact is this, it's a matter of choice, and we don't realize that. When you're in this place, you could follow it all the way down to the bottom, or you could just stop like I did and say, wait,
why do I have to listen to this?
I don't have to listen. Is there anything better I can do than listen? Of course there is. Go do it.
Bruce, look, we've got a lot to talk about. So for our viewers, how you spend how many months in New Zealand every year?
Well, up until the recent election, about 5 months a year. But now that the U.S. is like upside down and crazy, maybe some more time. And I really have to thank the people and the government of New Zealand of giving me residency, which is like,
great.
Oh my God! It was like in the Monopoly game. There's a get out of jail free card. This is my residency in New Zealand. Get out of jail free.
Now you and I've talked about. I'm a great Trump supporter, but you tell me that wonderful story. You didn't get a chance to watch the American elections.
No.
Something came up, and so the next morning you got up. Start from there. I love this story.
Well, I was out of the country, and I went to breakfast, and some people stopped me and they said, Bruce, did you hear the results of the election? I go, oh no, because I already presumed that Hillary's going to win. And I said no, and they looked at me and they said, Trump won. And it was like this moment of, it was like, oh my God, the gears stopped. And it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that, And yet, right at this moment, you say, well, Bruce, what do you think about Trump? I go, you want me to tell you what I think about him as a human or what he's doing?
Yeah.
I say, as a human, I can't even put the words on television. You'd have to blink them out. But what is he doing? He's undermining the structure of the United States. And I go, why is this relevant? And I say, because we are facing an extinction process. Now, you may have seen it on the back page of the newspaper, but they don't really want to put it on the front page. That in this world that we are living in today, we have been so destructive of the environment, the web of life, breaking it out, altering the seas and everything. We are losing species of organisms faster today than what were called 5 previous mass extinctions, where 50 to 90% of all life got wiped out. We are accelerating in loss of species beyond those mass extinctions. So officially, scientifically, we are in what is called the 6th mass extinction of life.
But we don't even see. This is the problem. It's some Macedonian butterfly that nobody's ever heard about it. That's one of them, and if we suddenly saw all the lions disappear, we'd be.
You're right there, folks.
Well,
a
lot of these mass extinctions are things nobody ever. They're so rare, and so that we don't even.
No. Look, hey, 2048 is not a big deal from now, right?
Yeah.
2048. The conservative estimate, there will be no fish in the ocean.
Wow.
That's a fact of science. We have destroyed the breeding grounds. We've overfished the population. We're polluting the water. There will be no fish in the ocean 2048.
Now, a lot of people say this type of talk that you were saying, these things, and President Trump is exactly the same. He says it's all a hoax, and you're being alarmist. This is alarmist type talk, you know. And the whole scientific community is now being is in jeopardy because half the world don't believe them anymore, and the other half do. You see, so it's getting more and more contentious. This is what you're talking about?
This is a real. These are numbers that are real. Look,
Yeah.
for baby boomers, we were here in 1970.
Yep.
Guess what? They took a survey of all the animals on this planet, 1970.
Yep.
They recently did the second survey. 62% of that population is gone. We only have 38% of the animals left on the planet today that we had in 1970.
But the problem with that type of information is,
Yes.
When you say 60%, 62% have gone, what an enormous job it would be for me to get out of the seat now and go and find out whether that is true. So because I think, I wouldn't know whether that was true or not. So I think to myself, now it's going to take me at least 5 years and about a couple of $100,000 for me to really discover if that is true. Of course, you can go to the internet and you can look this up, but you don't know whether it's true on the internet or not. So the problem is, how do we know that that's true? That 62%. How do we know?
Well, basically,
that could be an urban myth.
Yeah, it could be, but being a scientist and being, that's my career.
But this scientist that made this,
Not a scientist. It's a
group.
a whole group of scientists.
But they could have an agenda about getting funding from a university.
I don't think that's what it. Look,
And
I have
this
to.
is the-
Listen, I'm going to have to. I know we're doing an anti-science thing.
Yeah.
And it's being promoted by the government in the United States.
So, yeah.
The idea is like, no climate change. It's like,
Well,
what do you
that's what
mean
they're
no
saying.
climate change? Well, of course there's climate change. You
There's always
can't predict
climate,
anymore what's going on. I live in California. California provides 52% of the food to the United States.
Yeah.
I go, we've had a drought for 6 years. Guess what? There is no 52% of the food coming from California. It's in the last few years. The prices of food have spiked. The availability of food is less available.
But the rains came 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, didn't they?
And guess
And
what? Most of it ran off. For the simple reason is when the earth gets dry for a long period of time and then gets a lot of water, it doesn't soak in as much runoff.
Well, look, we've got to move on, but the jury is out. The jury's out.
Well, as a scientist, I have to say...
You're saying those things, and President Trump is saying it's all a hoax.
Well, President Trump's... Look, I have to acknowledge that President Trump's intelligence, academic awareness...
Zero.
is so low that it's an embarrassment. And so I'm not saying I love President Trump. As I said, as a human, he's inhumane. His proposals are inhumane. It's actually antagonistic to evolution. Because evolution is the people of the world have to come together and recognize there's a unity.
Right. Okay. Well, look, we'll finish that because that's 3 hours for the 2 bottles of wine. That one, isn't it?
And at the end, it may not make anybody happy either. So.
I think the jury's still out on this. So they say things like the science is settled, and I can gather 16 scientists here, and you can gather 16 and say, look, it's settled, and I can find 16 who'll say it's not settled.
Well, unfortunately, the scientists that supposedly Trump has put in there are not even scientists. The head of the EPA is not even a science person at all, but his first mission was, well, let's get rid of the EPA. And I said, you know how many years we worked to clean up the water so they didn't have the corporations throw the waste into the water? We cleaned it all up, and this year he said, "Nah, that's the end of that. He said to the companies, you can throw your waste back into the water." It's like, where are you coming from?
Now,
man?
we don't know whether that's true or not, whether he means that particular thing. You see, that I understand that that's a fake news story that the release.
I love you because you are so happy to live in this world with that kind of talk. But I'm a science guy. I can't do it.
Now, Bruce, look, I love this. I'd love to continue. But we want to talk about these wonderful books because they're all fabulous. And are we allowed to give away any of these?
I'm going to leave those 3. Why don't we give those 3 away?
Good on you. That's wonderful. So we've got 3 of our lucky viewers can each win a copy.
Yeah.
They can either win The Biology of Belief, Spontaneous Evolution,
or The Honeymoon Factor.
Or The Honeymoon Factor.
Yeah.
So what we need is a fabulous, deeply intelligent question to ask our viewers, because they're going to email Jared at thebeatgoeson.co.nz.
Yeah.
And in the subject line of the email, they're going to put the answer. So what would you like to suggest a really intelligent question that we could ask our viewers? We'll give them the answer anyway. So, the whole of life is based on the cell. Would that be right? Because you're a...
Okay, yeah. Actually, what controls your biology? And the answer, many will say genes, and the answer is no. Consciousness, mind.
Subconscious or?
Well, both mind and consciousness, any combination of those, or any one of those. Oh, we already gave away the answer.
Yeah, well, that's all right. Okay, in the subject line, the answer is the mind.
The mind controls biology.
The genes.
It controls all of our biology. In fact, I'm a biologist saying that.
Yeah.
Quantum physicists in 1925, that was their first conclusion about quantum physics. I mean, one of the important quotes from James Jeans, one of the original quantum physicists, was, "We have up until this moment thought of the universe as a great machine, but it is more a great thought."
Love that.
And that is the nature of quantum physics. Our consciousness is manifesting this reality. And if we don't like the reality, then we can change our consciousness.
Final question, Bruce. Knowing all this that you know about the powerful things that you've discovered, does that convince you that there is a God, or does it convince you that there may be nothing? What does it lead you?
My whole career as a scientist was based on the fact that I did not believe in spirituality. It was genes, chemistry, proteins. And in my research on cells, I started to learn about how cells work, not the genes. But I also recognize this. You can't put your cells into any other human, because if you transplant your cells, every recipient, their immune system will say not self. I put my cells into your body, your immune system, not self. So it says cells have a self. I go, well, you mean there's a mark of some kind on my cell? That's my cell, not yours. And it turns out there are these marks, and they're actually antennas on the surface of the cell called self-receptors. Self-receptors, receivers of self. No two people have the same set. I go, well, that's really cool, but here's what the point is. The receptors are on the outside of the cell. The identity of who we are is not inherent from inside the cell. It's a signal from the environment that is picked up, okay? And the moment I saw that in the mechanism of how the membrane worked with these receptors, I said, oh, Jesus, I can't die. I'm not even in here. I'm a broadcast. And so look at our bodies as little television sets. You're the Gerard show, I'm the Bruce show. And the whole idea is we're having our lives, we have our show, and then the TV breaks. We say, oh, TV is dead. I go, if you're watching a show on TV and the TV breaks, I said, did the broadcast stop?
No.
And this is what we're beginning to find out, that our identity is a broadcast, and a future embryo could have the same set of these. It's like a Social Security number.
So the final answer was yes.
100%. I am now totally into that. I am not even in here.
Yeah.
But let me conclude with this. Ready?
Yep.
As a scientist and not being spiritual, and then at this one instant going, oh my God, I'm a broadcast. I asked myself a very important question. I said, well, why have a spirit and a body? Why not just be a spirit?
Yeah.
That's what I asked. And all of a sudden, I felt a welling up of information. The cells, 50 trillion cells, a voice came into my head and said, Bruce, if you're just a spirit, what does chocolate taste like? And all of a sudden, I said, oh my God, this is a virtual reality suit. I step into this, I can see, I can smell, I can taste, I can create. And all of a sudden, I said, oh my God, we came here to have experiences. We came to the planet to create. And all of a sudden, it's like, and I said, well, what we're going to create? The mess that we have? I go, no. What did you create when you were on the honeymoon? Heaven on earth. We came here to do that.
So about chocolate, God created chocolate, but basically he creates humans so he can taste himself.
You can taste it because taste comes from the biological cells. It has to take the chemistry, convert it into nervous system. Nervous system converts it into vibration. There's no taste, it's a vibration. And here's the important part. Not only am I picking up an identity on my receptors from outside, but I could read your brain activity. Say, yeah, I could put wires on your head. It's called EEG, electroencephalograph. I could read your brain activity. But there's a new version called magnetoencephalograph. And I say, what's important? The probe doesn't even touch your head. I go, why is it relevant? I'm reading your brain activity outside. What was the point?
God.
Your consciousness is not trapped in your head, it's broadcast. And so as we're moving through the world, it's like a tuning fork.
So every human being is basically a small radio station.
Absolutely. Broadcasting and receiving at the same time. And when we understand that, then it gives a whole different purpose to why we're here.
I have to broadcast some terrible news. We've run out of time.
No, I thought you said 12 more hours.
Bruce, always great to see you. Great to see you.
Oh my God, I wish we had a lot of time, Gerard.
I
Thank
salute
you
you.
so very much.
A wonderful
And I
life.
want to thank everyone out here, especially all these Kiwis. Thank you for letting me stay in this most beautiful country.
Good on you, Bruce.